brother! Ben, one of the most gaping plot holes or just broad stroke problem solving plot devices in the wizarding world of Harry Potter is Felix Felicis, better known as liquid luck. Because having a potion that can just like solve all of the problems Harry has kind of takes away from all of the hard work and suffering they endure while, normally solving the problems. But what if J.K. Rowling didn't actually introduce anything like this? What if Felix Felicis actually does nothing? So in case you need a refresher, Felix Felicis, or Liquid Luck, is introduced on Harry's first day of potions in his 6th year by Professor Slughorn, which has its own set of problems, but we'll come back to that. He says he has taken it twice in his life, had 2 perfect days, and offers it up as a prize to whoever can concoct the best draft of living death in that class. And much to the surprise of everyone, including us the readers, Harry wins because he has Snape's old textbook. Harry then, ironically, later uses the potion against Professor Slughorn to procure the memory Professor Dumbledore needs to confirm his theory that Tom Riddle had been creating Horcruxes since he was in school. And Felix Felicis is a really cool idea for a potion, and it's really fun reading how it affects Harry. But the problem when you have a fix-everything plot device like that is, why isn't everyone just always using it? Now, to her credit though, J.K. Rowling does put up a lot of roadblocks and stipulations in order to justify the use of Felix Felicis and solve this problem. For example, some of the ingredients, like alchemy eggs, are really hard to come by, but then some of them are just stuff like, horseradish? But more on that later. Another barrier is that it takes 6 months to brew, and the effects can be disastrous if done wrong. And even if you manage to brew it correctly, it can be toxic if you take too much, and overuse can lead to dangerous recklessness and extreme overconfidence. So yes, the barrier to entry is high, and the consequences could be extreme, and yet, the benefit seems so awesome, it is still hard to believe people aren't constantly trying to make this. Maybe that stuff would turn away a majority of people, but surely not everyone, and most especially if you're already a potions master. Yeah, Snape is really one of the biggest problems when it comes to Felix Felicis, because nothing about his life seems like it's drenched in sunshine and happiness and good fortune. He's unpopular at school, the girl he's in love with marries his worst enemy, he eventually has to guard over their offspring, and eventually he's asked to murder the one man he actually really respects. Luck is literally defined as the good or bad things that happen to you that are out of your control. I mean, Snape's whole life just seems like the definition of bad luck. Just nothing good ever happens for him. You would think someone with such bad fortunes, who is also a potions master, would have this stuff on stock. At least a bottle for like an emergency situation, right? And by emergency situation, I mean like, I don't know, maybe you overhear a prophecy about your boss killing the woman you love and you need to like talk your boss out of that situation. Although I guess to be fair, maybe Snape actually was successful in that request, and Lily does kind of just go out of her way to die that night, but I mean that kind of says the whole story, so. Either way, very unlucky for Snape. Now, you could argue that Snape is the kind of person who would never want to rely on something like luck, since he does seem to despise people who were simply born into better fortunes than himself.
Our new celebrity.
And despite his life being pretty gloomy, he is actually still a pretty successful wizard. At one point, he is second in command to both Dumbledore and Voldemort at the same time.
Who's really in control, guys?
This is because Snape is an insanely hard worker, and I don't think he could bear it if he thought anyone thought he got to where he was by luck. So sure, maybe Snape would never use the potion, but I feel like he would still have it on hand. I mean, he has stocks of Veritaserum on hand, and that's not even allowed at school. Unless he, as a potions master, knows that Felix Felicis actually does nothing. All throughout the Half-Blood Prince, Snape reveals that he really understands potions, like even more than Slughorn, who is constantly impressed by Harry's brewing abilities, all of which are actually coming courtesy of Snape's old textbook. So let's take a look at the ingredients of Felix Felicis. You have ashwander egg, horseradish, squill bulb, murtlap tentacle, tincture of thyme, alchemy eggshell, and powdered common rue. Half of them are completely common and non-magical. Horseradish, thyme, common rue, what is that all just for flavor? Squill bulb might sound magical, but a squill is just a flower that we even muggles use for cough medicine. Alchemy yolks are somewhat useful. Gilderoy Lockhart uses them in his line of shampoos, but their shells are just silver. And then we're just left with murtlap tentacles and ashwinder eggs. The murtlap is the thing that bites Jacob in Fantastic Beasts, and its tentacles are said to improve one's defenses against jinxes, and we see Harry use it after his detentions with Umbridge to soothe his hand. And then there's the ashwinder eggs, which are most commonly used in love potions. Which makes me think that the real effect in potions is to create some sort of infatuation or positivity in the drinker. And are we sure they're not just making tequila? I agree, the potion does sound like it would at least put the drinker in a very good mood, but I also think it's even more possible that the drinker is simply under the spell of the placebo effect. If you're not familiar with the placebo effect, it's when your belief that something works causes it to work. Like, for example, if you had a really bad headache and your friend told you, oh my gosh, I have this amazing new headache medicine, and they gave it to you and boom, your headache was cured, but then later you found out actually they gave you a Tic Tac or something. That can sound crazy, but the placebo effect is enormously well documented and is very much a real thing, even though it kind of sounds like, what's the word? Magic?
I love magic.
Yes, how convenient that magical luck in the world of Harry Potter behaves so much like what is often perceived as magic in the real world. The most glaring example of this in the books is when Harry literally placebos Ron by making him think he drank Felix Felicis before his Quidditch match. But he doesn't take it, and that is the key. Ron does not take Felix Felicis, and yet the effects are the same. Ron plays amazing because he believes he's extra lucky. And the more I thought about it, the more it just seems like everything about Felix Felicis is just there to make you, the drinker, take that placebo bait, hook, line, and sinker. I mean, the fact that it's so rare, time-consuming, and difficult to make makes you think that, wow, when you were in the presence of it, yeah, this is like an amazing thing. The whole 6-month stipulation makes it easy to mess up, but I think that is still just part of the lie. Because how awfully convenient is it that if you take it and nothing happens, it's easier just to assume, oh, I probably messed up making the potion, rather than the actual conclusion that Felix Felicis doesn't really do anything. Even the danger of overuse. If you, the drinker, think you are only going to get to try this once, it puts a lot of pressure on you to make the best out of that occasion. So you do. And sorry, what were the other side effects? Overconfidence and dangerous recklessness? Yeah, duh. Sure, if you take the potion and then approach some different problems with renewed vigor and positivity and bravery, you probably are going to make some headway on those things, but it's not sustainable. Eventually, mistakes will happen. Mistakes happening, by the way, is conveniently one of the signs that the potion is just wearing off. What? Bad things are happening again? Oh no, don't worry. That just means it's wearing off. That's totally normal. Totally normal, don't worry. Even the spell used while making the potion, Felix Empra, is kind of questionable. Felix Empra is only used while making this potion. If you use it outside of it on anything else, guess what it does? Nothing. Probably because even when you're using it on the potion, it does nothing. But if you're still not convinced, take this under consideration. How did Slughorn have it ready so fast? We literally see Harry recruit Slughorn to be his potions professor 2 months before the term starts. And yet, somehow on the first day of class, he has a 6-month potion ready to go. Sure, I guess it's plausible he just happened to be brewing it 6 months earlier, but he says he's on the run from the Death Eaters, constantly changing locations, and this sounds like a complicated potion to make. How is he doing this if he's constantly moving around and on the run? Perhaps this is because, much like Snape, Slughorn has realized that the potion doesn't actually give you luck. The 2 perfect days he mentioned could just be days when he took the potion before he realized this and was under the placebo effect. And why not? Why deprive your students of that? They're really excited about it. It's a cool thing to do on the first day of class. But Jay, I hear you saying, Harry does use it to great effect, and so does Ron and Ginny and Hermione during the battle below the astronomy tower. How do you explain that? Yes, Harry does get the memory from Slughorn after taking the potion. But I will remind you, Dumbledore gave him this task because he always believed Harry had it in him to do this. He didn't even know Harry had the potion and definitely didn't intend for him to use it. He thought Harry could do it on his own, because he could. It's just that after taking the potion, Harry believes he knows what to do, that the decisions he's making are the right decisions. I will admit that Harry's sudden and almost improbable decision to go to Hagrid's was probably the biggest hurdle I had when trying to explain this.
Hagrid's, I feel it's the place to be tonight.
Because why would he decide to do that, right? It seems so out of the blue. But it's not. Hagrid does invite Harry, Ron, and Hermione to come to Aragog's funeral, and Hermione and Ron are the ones who talk Harry out of doing it. Harry actually feels sorry for Hagrid. In fact, it's kind of out of character for Harry not to help Hagrid. On pretty much every occasion ever, Harry decides to help Hagrid. Always. So I don't think it's any coincidence that after he takes this and suddenly has this boost of confidence, he's like, yeah, I need to go to Hagrid's. I need to help him. That's where I'm gonna be. That's the right place to be. Yep, Hagrid's. And as for Ron, Hermione, and Ginny fighting the Death Eaters, I think it's just like the Quidditch match. I think they always had it in them to go toe-to-toe with the Death Eaters. Isn't it a better story if all of their training is paying off and they're not just surviving because they drink a potion? I think so. But in the end, it's not that I think this potion does nothing. Like I said earlier, I think at the very least it makes you feel positive, lowers your inhibitions, and just gives you more confidence. But most importantly, it lets you believe you are lucky. And then you just act accordingly. Then my question for you and everybody else is, what do you think? Is Felix Felicis actually liquid luck, or is it just a giant placebo effect? Let me know your thoughts in the towel section down below.
These socks are amazing!
And a special thanks to these patrons who support Super Carlin Brothers on Patreon. Guys, thanks as always for watching this video. Please remember to leave a like on it if you haven't already, and subscribe so you don't miss any future Harry Potter videos from us. If you want even more Super Carlin Brothers action, I recommend you head over to Super Carlin Gaming, where we just finished the 3rd season of the Pokemon Nuzlocke Challenge. You can now binge that whole thing right here. Or if you just want some more Harry Potter stuff, we have an entire playlist right here. Be sure to go check that out. But Ben, that's all I've got for you today, man. I will see you in another life, brother.